Thanks, Pete, for sitting down with me to have a little talk about the Coventry Music Museum. So, can you explain the history to the Music Museum? When was it set up and how you got involved?
Right, well, we're nearly 12 years old, which is amazing because we thought we'd get 3 years out of it at the most. So here we are heading for our 12th birthday. But I mean, the original idea, I'm very kind of like active when it comes to Coventry tourist music ventures, really, tourism, anything to do with
Yeah,
music. And I sort of helped to create the Coventry Walk of Fame.
yeah,
They're called the Coventry Stars now. And anything to do with that. We've got the Country Music Wall of Fame outside here, outside the museum. So stuff like that. I felt like, there wasn't enough. This is the place that sort of created two-tone music, which is, loved all over the world. And yet in our own city, we weren't really doing very much. So it all started really when a friend of mine was approached by two Japanese girls at Coventry City Centre, and they sort of wanted to know where the two tone was. They were aware of this global brand,
yeah,
and of course we weren't. And he got back to me and told me this, and I thought this is a disgrace. So the first thing I did was put together a two-tone trail with all the pertinent sites in the city that had a history in the whole two-tone ethic, and I put that together. I wrote a book,
hmm,
and we did badges and everything, and it was available at the tourist information. And it was an itch that was scratched, but not completely.
yeah,
Once you get that, you wanted to do more. And of course, like I say, other things came. But the dream for me was always about having a museum
yeah,
that represented country music. And it was very much a dream for a long while, because I didn't realise just how difficult it was going to be. I could talk forever about country music,
yeah,
but where does fire extinguishers and risk assessment come into all that? Effectively, we're creating a small business,
yeah,
which
sure.
I'd never thought of. I just wanted my beloved museum
Yeah, yeah,
in Coventry to tell the story of all the musical things that had happened here. So, you know, as I say, we progressed bit by bit. We have the Country Wall of Fame. And then once we'd sort of established the fact that we were going to do this, we were going to create a museum uh, that looked at country music and celebrated the whole country music sound, whatever that is and whatever it was
yeah,
and whatever.
yeah,
So we did all that. We got stuff together, and we were trying to get the money, trying to get grants, and eventually, we actually started it at the university. We got a place there, but unfortunately, it only lasted sort of a year really, because the place where we were was being moved for the student union.
yeah,
I won't bore you with the details, but anyway, we didn't last a year,
mm,
and we looked around for other places. And again, it was a long story, but eventually, after a couple of years, we found this place,
yeah,
or next door, and everything else that went to it. And we put it all together, and it took a long while.
hmm,
Took a lot of money and a lot of people working as a team, but eventually, like I say, nearly 12 years ago, about 11 and a half years ago now, we actually finally opened, which was an amazing thing. And we get people coming from all over the world. There's a map up there, which I'm sure you'll do a nice close up of at some point.
yeah,
And it's got all the flags of all the countries. We've had about 100 different countries, people from all those countries
yeah,
coming here. Which is great, and we absolutely love it. And every day is just wonderful. I mean, for me, it's like we're here Thursdays to Sundays,
hmm,
and it's like this wonderful journey every week.
hmm,
You get here on a Thursday, and you never know what is going to happen.
yeah.
You could be here, and you get like,
You have a film crew turn up.
well, I was just going to say that film crew turns up. Neville Staple turns up.
Yeah,
You know, uh, Horace Panther,
yeah,
Roddy, or whatever, and then Pauline Black, who
yeah,
I think was going to be here today at some point, but apparently it's not anymore. But there we are. There's
yeah,
all these things, and it's like that. And you get people who are wonderful. I mean, all our visitors are wonderful. Yeah, you don't really get any disingenuous people because they all pay because they want to be
yeah,
here. You pay to get in; it's not free, so they're here for a reason. So it's great.
mm,
And we've had all these great reviews. We've constantly been #1 on TripAdvisor. Things to do in Coventry,
Yeah.
which isn't bad. As I say, we pretty much make it up as we go along. So yeah, I mean, there's no book how to run a Coventry Music Museum or
No.
any music
No.
museum really, and there isn't really many music museums per se in Britain. You know, we're the only one that really sort of celebrates our own music. Yeah,
Yeah.
obviously, you've got stuff in Liverpool, you've got the
Yeah.
Beatles, and
Yeah.
you've got the British music experience up there, but
Yeah.
that's like the whole country
Yeah.
it represents, not its local stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're kind of fortunate to have that. And there's talk about all these other places, but you know, we know that Manchester, Birmingham, Sheffield, Liverpool, and London, they should all have music museums, and maybe one day they will. But at the moment, we're the only one that's really doing that, and we're really proud of that.
Absolutely. So I can tell you're really passionate about the music. Just rewinding a bit,
Mm.
when did you first fall in love with two-tone?
Right. Well, I was lucky enough to see the specials before they were the specials. I saw them as the Coventry Automatics. And did I see the future of two-tone music? Did I see the future of Coventry music? Well, no, I didn't. You know, I wasn't really that impressed, and I didn't really sort of remember that much of it. I only know I was definitely there. And it wasn't till afterwards, you know, when I was with a friend and I think it came on the radio, gangsters, you know, squeal of brakes and, you know, that the whole sound that of course changed everything for us. When that came on, you know, my mate was saying, "This is it. This is that band," and it was like, "Really, the same band?" And it was great. And of course, it was something really different. And of course, as I say, it changed everything for us. I mean, the funny thing was, and I always tell this story, you know, for us, it was really, really weird, you know, because we saw all these guys, you know, all the specials and the selector who there they were on top of the pops, and there they were on the local pub, the Dog and Trumpet. You know, I gave a badge to Jerry and he wore it on the telly, and it was like, wow.
Yeah.
And it was really weird for us. And of course, years later, when you get to know the guys, you realise how weird it was for them. It was even weirder, you know. They're the ne'er-do-wells in the city, and all these
Yeah.
musicians trying to make it, trying to do something. And then next thing, they're on top of the pops with a hit record
Yeah.
and creating effectively a record label, you know, to something like Apple that the Beatles had, you know, they had two tone. So it was amazing, really. And that was a crazy thing. But that time was just beautiful. You know, they say about, you know, the 60s, if you enjoyed it, you weren't there. Well, you know, I enjoyed the 80s when it came to two-tone, you know, the early 70s, sorry, the late 70s and the early 80s.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it immensely, and I was definitely there. And it was great because you knew something was happening. It was happening in your own city.
Mhm.
I remember just as Gangsters was in the charts, we went over to Lloret de Mar in
Oh
Spain,
yeah.
our first holiday, you know,
Yeah.
and with the boys. And there we were on the dance floor, and it was like we were so proud because this was our band. It was like, you know, this is the specials. They're from Coventry.
Yeah.
You know, we love them. You know, this is our city, and it was just great. And it was exciting times, and everybody sort of felt that way, you know, and everybody was playing it, and of course everybody wanted a bit of Coventry, you know, and it was great, and the city was vibrant, and I mean that's never gone away, and we've always been on the music map from there on, and
Yeah.
the reason we could do this,
Yeah.
and of course, you know, it's given me a living as well, you
Yeah.
know, my whole life, yeah.
Absolutely. So I've heard Pauline Black talk a little bit about how the two-tone sound came about, and you know, partly perhaps due to immigration into the city around the motor industry,
Mm.
and you had that kind of fusion of, you know, the Caribbean culture coming in, you know, mixed in with punk in that sort of late 70s era. So yeah, did you really feel that? Was that kind of how did it feel like that sound came about? And obviously the museum, it tells the story, I guess.
Well, yeah, the museum does tell the story, but that sound, I mean, Coventry was a multicultural city before we even knew what that
Yeah.
meant. You know, nobody could said multicultural
Yeah.
back in the day.
Yes.
But we were, I mean, you know, we were going to blues parties and, you know, and I speak as a white man, you know, a white guy, I should say, at the time, or a white youth, you know, we did kind of got on with it, you know. Obviously, there was racism like there is now and there was then all over the place. But I think, Coventry wasn't too bad. And again, I speak as a white guy. I know a lot of that went on, but the people sort of, were working together in this city. As you say, a lot of people came for the car factories, of course, and we were kind of like a perfect place. We were right in the middle. We weren't north, we weren't south or east or west. We were right in the middle. We were like this sponge, like the sponge that David Bowie once talked about, and then sucking up all this information from all over. And of course, we had all these people that came in from the Windrush generation, and it all worked together. And of course, they brought their culture and everything else. And it was great, the sound systems were going on. And of course, if you think of it, it was going to happen, But it took somebody like Jerry Dammers to galvanise the whole thing, and create the band, the Specials. And once that was created, obviously everything was different. Then it all changed for everybody, I think, in the city, and of course beyond the city, this two-tone revolution, this ska music, and of course it brought back a lot of the originators as well. They started earning a little bit of money from it, where previously they hadn't
Yeah.
necessarily earned any money, which was great. So it was just a wonderful, joyous time. And yes, there was problems, and yes, there was racial things going on. But I think Coventry really, amongst a lot of the places, didn't do too badly, And of course, we did have our minor riots, but nothing as far as like Liverpool or Bristol or London had.
Mm. There's some anniversaries, I guess there's always an anniversary, but 45 years, I think that's considered the 45 years since the Selector record came out. So are you doing anything particularly to commemorate that here?
It's not necessarily on the cards. I mean, stuff will happen.
Yeah.
Obviously, we change our exhibition every year,
Okay.
but we are planning an exhibition next year, but it's not two-tone based. I mean, obviously, we've kind of done these things, quite often, and
Yeah.
much as we love two-tone, you can't totally do two-tone
Yeah.
every time. So we're opening up for something else. I won't give it away at the
Okay.
moment,
Yeah.
but
No, that's,
it's another artist from the city that's well known,
yeah.
and we've got some ideas for that. But no doubt there might be other things coming up,
Yeah.
which we always do,
Okay.
and within the sort of limits of what we can do.
Yeah.
Because obviously we've only got so much money, and we used to try and do 2 exhibitions a year, but that's just not,
Yeah.
feasible anymore.
Yeah.
We have to put it down to one, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah. 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 Okay. So yeah, people coming to visit, then they can just turn up, and how do they find out more? There's a website or social media.
Yeah, there's a website. I mean, I won't try and give the URL. Just
Search it. Yeah.
Google it or
Yeah.
whatever, and
Yeah.
other search engines are available, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I would say. We're open Thursdays to Sundays, as I say.
Yeah.
Children go free. It's only £6 for adults. We're not taking the mickey, but that money helps us exist. Well, it doesn't help us. It does make us exist, because without that, we couldn't carry on.
Yeah.
So all the information's there. Come along. It's not just about two-tone.
No.
I want to put that out
Yeah.
there.
That's,
I had a lady phone this morning and say, "Is that the Ska Museum?" And it's like, no, no, we're not a two-tone museum. We're not the Ska Museum. We're the Coventry Music Museum, and we tell the story as much as we can of all Coventry and Warwickshire music. Not necessarily the stuff that actually charted, but stuff that stories that maybe aren't told elsewhere. We can tell them in here.
Yeah.
You find out that John, that you go down to the pub with, he used to be a pop star in the '60s, and he was signed to Decca Records.
Wow.
And you probably only find that out here, unless of course you're sitting with John down the Rose and Crown.
So you got some amazing memorabilia here from the city by the look of it. We're in an instrument music area here.
Yeah, well, that's, I mean, none of these are like collectibles. These are just playable stuff.
Yeah.
But it does mean people can come in. I mean, it's amazing the amount of people that come here, and the first time in their lives they've ever picked a guitar up.
Yeah.
they're like holding it the wrong way around or something, when most people can naturally pick a guitar up and you know where you are.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't. And it's great when you see that. And of course, we get a lot of kids in here as well that, make some music, make some noise. That's what we say.
Brilliant.
So you can come in here. I mean, that's the same with the whole museum. Kids can come in here, they can play in the car, they can play here, and they can make as much noise as they like. We want them to have fun. And we want the adults to have fun as well.
Yeah, well, I could definitely spend all day here, Pete. So, yeah, I think thank you very much, Pete, for speaking with me. And yeah, we'll have a look around.
Brilliant.
Thank
Thanks
you.
very much.
Cheers, Pete.
Cheers.
Thank
Thank you.
Okay, we come upstairs in the Coventry Music Museum, and I'm speaking with
Phil.
Phil. So, Phil, what car are we in?
You're in a Vauxhall Cresta, built in 1961 in Luton.
Okay. And this is famous for?
This is the car that featured in the Ghost Town video recorded by the Specials back in 1981.
1981, wow. And this has been, a main focal point in the museum since it's opened?
No, we actually acquired it around about 6 or 7 years ago. But obviously, since we did acquire it, it has been one of the central features of the museum and much loved by our visitors, particularly when they can get an opportunity to be photographed in it.
Yeah. Brilliant. And I'm a big Coventry City fan, so what has caught my eye is the exhibition over there, which looks like it's just all about Coventry. Is there anything else there?
So I guess what we're looking at this year are the themes between, if you like, where football and music meet. A particular emphasis on Coventry. So the two main ones, I guess, are the 1987 Cup final song, "Go For It," which is featured here.
It's one of my favourites.
Yeah. And then the other one, much newer, is the Enemy's song "We'll Live and Die in These Towns," which of course is now, it gets played, just before kickoff. And that's really grown in popularity. So we wanted to reflect that here as well.
Yeah.
But what we've also done is we've got a few other features that hopefully fans of all football clubs can relate to as well. So it's not just about Coventry.
No, great. Thank you.